Years ago, when I first got here, there's a guy who I actually ended up really liking. But he told me that he couldn't stand me. And he couldn't stand me. I mean, really, I'm a weed, so insults don't really affect me. I grew up with sisters, so I am immune to insults. Anyhow, he said he couldn't stand me because when I get nervous, I do this thing where I'll say, "Does that make sense?" And he said, "I can't stand that. I can't stand the fact that you fold your arms." And he says, "I don't even like the gap between your teeth." And when he says that, I just think that's funny. So I said, "You don't like that gap. I've had to stand behind it for 50 years. And so he said he didn't like me, and I said, "Don't worry. I'll grow on you like a rash." And actually, he did die, but that's what you get. But no, I really ended up loving the guy. And anyhow, the point being is that if you want to reject somebody, you'll find some reason. Even like, I don't like the gap between his teeth. You'll just find a reason. And even like, this kind of surprised me. I think it was on Friday, one of our parishioners called because, and I think this is funny, they've been checking out the bulletin from St. Pius, where I'm going. And in the bulletin, the priest writes this letter to the community where he basically says, "Stop gossiping about Fr Len." I know, and so the person called and said, "Well, what's the gossip?" I don't know. But I said, "Well, I want you to spread the gossip that Fr Len is an international spy. I'm like a James Bond, just celibate, a celibate James Bond." But and it sounds strange to put that in the bulletin, but having been through this for 30 years, I know exactly what's going on. People don't like change, and so they'll find something to dislike you. And it has happened in every parish I go to, where it sounds kind of strange, but like my first time I was a pastor was in McCall. And the first person who had to meet with me, is this woman who, she wants to meet with me, but she comes and she brings me this list of names of people who shouldn't be going to communion. And they're all elderly women. And like I'm looking at it, it says, "You have to deny them communion." So of course I said, "I'm not going to do that." And here's the odd part. She just didn't like them. But the moment I didn't agree with her, for the rest of the 3 years in McCall, she hated me because I didn't hate the same people she hated. And you could say, well, that's a one-time incident. That has happened in every single parish. Even when I went to Moscow, this one woman has to meet with me before I even am unpacked. And she tells me that there's a dangerous woman in the parish. Oh, okay. And she's talking about this woman. I said, "Well, how old is this woman?" Because it kind of makes it seem that she's elderly. And she says, "Well, she's like 83 years old, a dangerous woman." And so then I said, "Does she have a walker?" And she's, yeah. So let me get this right. An 83-year-old woman with a walker is the most dangerous person. Well, the truth be known, this woman didn't like the other woman, and she wanted to make sure I hated her. And the moment I refused, for the rest of my time there, she hated me. That sounds kind of strange, but my only point being is that you have this whole theology of rejection that some people, that's what they lead with. They'll find some reason to hate you. And if you don't hate the same people I hate, then I hate you. That's just a theology of rejection. And I mention it because, if you didn't notice, that's the theme in the readings. Start with the prophet. God tells the prophet, the people will reject you. They'll persecute you. And then he says this great advice, which skips, if you're Catholic, you'd probably get it, where God tells them to stand up and go. What does it mean, stand up and go? You can't do this. You can't stand up and go at the same time. Stand up, you have to know, is a position of prayer. So think about this. Every time we talk to God, opening prayer, closing prayer, we stand. Standing is a posture of when you receive communion, when you listen to the gospel. Standing is also a sign of making a commitment to God. So when God tells a prophet, stand and move, what he means by stand is as long as you stay in prayer, the rejection of other people is not going to affect you. You're going to do what you need to do. Does that make any sense? So yeah, you're never overwhelmed by rejection as long as you keep up a prayer life. Or the gospel. The gospel is about people in Jesus' hometown rejecting him. And they reject him. Like, this sounds kind of strange, but when they say, Jesus, the son of Mary, that's an insult. That's a snide put down. Because in Judaism, like if I said Steve, it would be Steve, son of, I don't know your dad's name, David. Does that, it works like that. You're son of the Father. So when they say Jesus, the son of Mary, that's an insult. And it's an insult because his hometown people know that there is something odd about his birth, that Mary was pregnant before marriage. It's a put down. Or when they talk about Joseph, they call him, in Greek, they call him a tekton. And a tekton, you could translate it carpenter, but it really means somebody who works with their hands, a laborer. And that's a lower class. They're being smug with him. You know, who are you? You're the son of a tekton. Or they say, we know, your brothers and sisters. It doesn't mean siblings. In Greek, it would be more wider family. Cousins, second cousins, aunts. It's just a general term. It doesn't mean actual siblings. We know where you come from. So the whole thing is it's a put down. Their first reaction is this rejection. And my favorite rejection is what just happened before this gospel, where they reject him because he eats with sinners, which I just find a strange way to reject somebody because you love people too much. That's the problem with you. Wouldn't that be a great definition of somebody who's a Christian? Not who you reject, but the fact that you love way too much. And so, like my joke, and I mentioned this before, do you know why Jesus ate with sinners? Who else is he going to eat with? Otherwise, it's dinner with just him and his mother every night. Of course he welcomes sinners. But they criticize him. They reject him because he's too loving, which I wish I could be called that. The whole point being is that there's this whole theology of rejection. So that you have two choices. You can have the theology of loving too much or the theology of who do we reject, which I think is really interesting. And the point of that is this. If you choose this theology of rejection, you'll always find something that's wrong with somebody. Because I'll tell you a little secret. We're all crazy. No, seriously. Everybody's broken. Everybody's crazy. Oh, you pointed to your husband. She did. We're all crazy. But you know where you find one of the presence of the divine? Is in the lives of other people. And here's the odd part. You can fall in love with other people's craziness. You really can. It is totally possible. Some of my best friends, they're crazy. But I love them with all my heart. Yeah, I know they're crazy. Steve's crazy. That's Steve right there. He's an extreme perfectionist. So what? The point being is that, wow, if you can't love other people's craziness, you know who you're going to miss? Christ. Because that's where Christ presides, is really in us crazy people. We are all in the gutter. The only difference is some people are staring at the mud and other people are looking up at the stars. Some people, all they can see is dirt and problems. Other people, they get a great view of the divine. Yeah, we're all crazy. But if you can't love broken, crazy humanity, then you'll never discover the divine. That's what it means. That Mark has this theme all the time. Christ is too ordinary. Christ is so ordinary that remember when they go to arrest him, he doesn't really stand out. So they have to have Judas betray him with a kiss because Christ is so ordinary. He appears in the lives of people. And so if you really want to find God, you better have the ability to fall in love with crazy humanity. So they reject him. And then it has this really strange part in the gospel where it says Jesus could do no miracles there, that Jesus was powerless. Why was Christ, God, powerless to do miracles? Does it strike you that that's a little strange? God the Almighty can't do miracles? And you just to define that. Why can't God do miracles with these people? And what it's getting at is what the definition of faith is. That faith is an interaction. Faith is a relationship between us and God and us and each other. Faith is not a solo act, because a lot of people want to define faith as this solo act of, I know my catechism, so I have faith. That's not faith, that's knowledge. Faith technically is a relationship. And if all you have is the theology of who to reject, then you don't have a relationship with the divine. And this sounds strange, but people who define faith as this knowledge about I have towards God, in some ways, that's the same definition that atheists use. I know that sounds strange, but think about this. There's this book called The Handbook of Atheists. And it's a handbook on how to make converts to atheism. And the stunning part is, in it, the author, who's pretty smart, says, he's honest. He says, the word faith means, in Greek, it's pistis, which means trust. So technically, the word faith means that I have trust in our relationship. So faith, technically, is trust in a relationship. It's a relationship between us and God and us and each other. So yeah, your faith in God and your faith in the church, it's the same thing. You have faith in a relationship. Except in the Handbook of Atheists, it says, don't let people use that definition. Change it, that faith means belief without evidence. Well, what's stunning is that the handbook is just encouraging people to lie, change the definition. And yet, a lot of Christians think, well, faith means that I have certain knowledge. Because that's exactly what atheists think, that they can say, well, I work by evidence. Well, faith means I have evidence to trust this relationship. It's actually an ancient Roman legal term, that if you're entering into a contract, we had a relationship, and you made me trust this relationship, and I can sue you if it was a big hoax. So all the evidence in the world doesn't really help you that much. At some point, you're going to have to trust that relationship or not trust that relationship. I can't tell you how many married people, not married, but engaged in couples, they can't figure out if they should get married. They're just not sure, and they have all the evidence, but they can't make the leap into faith. Faith is trust in a relationship. So why is Jesus powerless? Because they have no faith in a relationship. All they have is the power to reject. That's why Jesus, when Jesus heals somebody, he doesn't say, I saved you. He never says that. He never says, God saved you. What he always says is, your faith saved you. This relationship between you and the divine and other people, that's what caused the miracle. And at one point, he'll say, this person has no faith, but a miracle happens to them, and he'll say about their friends, their faith saved you. That's a really shocking part. That our relationship to each other and God, that actually even causes miracles to people who have no faith in God. And faith then prescribes us unity. Our great strength is our unity, our faith in each other and faith in God. And I mean it. with that, we have done amazing things. I brag a little too much about this parish, but we're an amazing parish. Did you know, this shocked me, that we're one of the top places in the United States that has given to overseas causes? Like, do you remember, it happened years ago, I almost forgot about it. We built a school in Africa and paid for all the books. Do you remember that far back? Do you remember we built all these, Fr Len built all these homes in the Philippines for homeless families? So, I was surprised when Holy Apostles was one of the most generous places for international. We have a food bank that is the second largest in the Meridian. We have one of the largest RCA groups in the United States. Our faith causes miracles, even in Africa and the Philippines. Our faith saves other people. So with faith, wow, life blooms. And so if you have no faith, this relationship between us and God, there isn't much miracles. So the reason why it says he wasn't able to do much miracles was because miracles flows from a relationship. It's our unity with God and each other that allows life to bloom. And don't interpret it that Jesus didn't do miracles as punishment. It's not punishment. It's like, I know this sounds kind of strange. We actually believe God does not punish us. We punish ourselves. So if Lolita here refuses to breathe, she can't say, the air is punishing me. No, you chose not to breathe. There's consequences to that. You choose to breathe in the Holy Spirit, life blooms. Miracles bloom because really we have immersed ourselves in this relationship of faith with each other and God. That's all it means. So I guess in the end it's this. You can have two choices. You can have the theology of rejection or the theology of love. Now what should strike you, and this is a great bit of irony, Christ says he was amazed at their lack of faith. What that means is this: you can have religion without any faith. Because, think about this, the people in his hometown, they're of all the same religion and culture. You can have religion, all your knowledge of God, you know the catechism, but without faith, it's dead. So that should shock you, that when Christ looks at the world, many people are religious, but not everybody has faith. And without the faith, you've refused to breathe the air. It has its own consequences. You breathe air of the Holy Spirit, and lo and behold, miracles bloom. And Carl Jung said this great line where he said, thinking is hard. That's why most people choose to judge. Thinking about, I don't know why Steve's a perfectionist, but I don't know, he's a perfectionist, so all I can do is love him. His point being is that trying to imagine why people, think, why, I don't know why their way, I'll just think about it. That's hard work. It's hard work to try and really love other people. It's easier just to stand in judgment of them. But the great miracles of life is when you can say, I love crazy, broken, mixed up humanity. Then you discover, really, the presence of the divine. So you have two choices in today's gospel. You can choose to love too much, and there'll be miracles. Or you can choose, no, I'm going to find some reason to reject you, even if you have a gap in your teeth. One leads to miracles. And so together, let us stand and profess our faith.